welcome back after an extended hiatus to the Flatspotters podcast. I'm joined by Aryan, Casey, and Oshillex, and today we're going to be discussing the drivers' performance over the season and ranking from 20 to number 1 how we think the drivers have performed this year. So I guess let's get cracking and start with number 20. I don't think this is going to be a very controversial opinion, but
I think it'll be really controversial.
Yeah, y'all are not ready for
I don't know.
I think there's only one driver, to be honest.
Yeah, I have put Nicholas Latifi in 20th place.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't believe you'd put him down that far.
I know.
That's crazy.
It breaks my heart.
That's such a shame, but you know, I gotta agree with you. I can't lie.
I mean, the crashes early season was just taking the mickey. Compare him to Alex Albon, he's been like, especially at the start of the season, he was like a second a lap off, and that's off Alex Albon, who I personally rate, but he's not a future world champion material, realistically speaking.
Like he's a decent midfield
he's a solid
driver.
He's a very solid driver.
Yeah.
And I think he can definitely have a good career in the midfield, and maybe even as a top team, as a number 2 driver, or a. I can't see him challenging for a world title, but that's just me. And to be a second off, that's
The question
that's not
we
good.
should continuously ask ourselves during this is: does this driver win in the W11?
Yeah.
So
No,
does
he
Latifi
doesn't.
win in
He
the
doesn't.
W11?
He doesn't.
Max beats him. Also, I mean, it's been like quite a big fall off. In 2020, he was actually really solid. Got
He
3
was.
P11.
Really
In
strange.
2021, remember, he scored points before George Russell.
Yeah.
I mean, that
There were
that
races
was
like
more
the
luck,
Monza
to be
weekend in
honest.
2021 where he was just the quicker Williams driver. You know, he
Yeah.
was simply faster than George Russell, and you know, George Russell, who is now a race winner. And it's just all fallen apart for him, really. So,
I think,
if you want to hear the statistics...
I think last year Abu Dhabi,
Yeah, last year Abu
hurt
Dhabi
his,
messed him up.
confidence.
If you want to hear the
Yeah, he got-
statistics, he was over half a second off in both qualifying and the race. Head-to-head
Nice.
quali was 19-1 to Alex Albon. Head-to-head races was 15-2 to Alex Albon. It's not
When did he get the
good.
2?
He got the 2. One was round 6.
One was, yeah, and I
which
think
was
Japan.
Barcelona. Yeah,
And Japan.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Albon didn't really have the best weekend in Barcelona. I remember that.
Yeah. Well, he reportedly had floor damage. Whether you believe that or not is an entirely different story. Right. Moving swiftly
it's very easy to
onwards.
say.
We say sorry.
It's kind of similar to Hamilton in Brazil when he said after the incident he had floor damage with incident with Verstappen he had floor damage. It's like cars still seem pretty under control though. I think Russell was just pure faster than them.
Yeah. Well, it's always hard to say when they say floor damage because obviously when they produce proof, say like Bottas in Imola 2020 or Verstappen in Silverstone, then obviously it's much easier to confirm. And when it's a more significant pace drop, when it's like, oh, I lost a tenth or 2 from floor damage, that's kind of
You
up
don't
to
know.
interpretation. Whether they're actually how exaggerated that floor damage was. Regardless.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, moving on. P19. I
think
again. Wait,
Joe-
who wants to go first? Oshillex, you can go first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
It was a tough call between these 2 drivers that I'm gonna rank 18th and 19th, but in 19th place I put Mick Schumacher.
Yeah,
In 19th place, I also put Mick Schumacher.
yeah, I'm the same.
I think I'd say Joe, to be honest.
Right.
That's pretty low. I think.
So my argument for Mick Schumacher is at the start of the season, Haas had a very strong package to start the season off. You've got race 1 in Bahrain where he finished 11th outside the points in a race where Magnussen was, you know, at times ahead of Mercedes cars.
Magnussen P5 that race.
Yeah, exactly. He finished P5 that race, and Schumacher didn't score a point. Then what was followed on from Saudi? Again, Haas had a really competitive package at Saudi, and he threw it all away in qualifying with his own mistake.
Well, I think,
again, costing the team
I
lots of
think
money.
Saudi, you can understand. That seems like the car literally just got away from him, which does happen.
Well, but that's
But-
still a driver error at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and
and
it's
yeah.
costing him.
I think the way I'd see it, I can let Saudi Arabia happen, but then later on in the season, when crashes kept happening like that, then it's a bit more, come on, mate, do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, then you had race 3 in Australia, which was fine. Race 4, which was Imola, he crashed into Fernando Alonso on the first lap, spun out again in a race where Haas had a really strong package and Magnussen scored points. Miami, where again he was on for points, Haas had a strong package, and he smacked into Vettel, ruining his chances. And it was just the story. It was every race, every single race he was in the points, he managed to mess it up. Towards the end of the season, I think he progressed.
Towards the end of the season, he was a lot better. Yeah, but
towards the end of the season, he was faster than Kevin Magnussen. Most races, not in qualifying, Magnussen still had the edge there, but in most races, he was. Mick Schumacher ended up being the stronger Haas driver. But I mean, you've got to capitalize. He's not a rookie. He's not a rookie. He's a second-year driver.
You can't look at that and say you can't make him higher.
Yeah, exactly. I can't look at the pace the car had and his performance in the start of the season and justify him being better than anybody else on this list. He not
tore
really
the car
had
in
one
half
performance.
Twice.
He's not really had one performance, which has really blown me away.
You don't really see people tearing cars in half yet. He done it twice, 3 times.
He crashes. He crashes
Saudi Arabia and Monaco.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monaco.
Car
again.
fully came apart. So.
Yeah. So.
As for Joe.
What's Aryan's argument for Joe?
I mean, 47 to 6 points.
I agree.
That's a fair point.
That's a very fair point. It's a very fair point. But I mean, yeah. Sorry, go on.
So he really had to have the car in the second half of the season.
So Bottas was 2.44 tenths faster. No, percent. Sorry, 0.244% over the whole season, which is just. It's a huge gap. Like, at some tracks, that could be worth like. Yeah, no, 0.24%.
Yeah, I was about to say 2.4.
To be honest,
but that's pretty big.
Yeah. So in qualifying trim, Bottas was 14 to Zhou's 8, and on average he was 0.34% faster in qualifying. But which is yes, that's a big gap. I agree with that. But there's a couple things to consider for me. Is one, Zhou is a rookie. And two,
I mean, Mick is only in his second year, if you want to use that argument.
Yeah, no,
and,
I think
2021.
Rookie is a big. There's a big difference between rookie and second-year driver.
But that 2021 Haas was like.
No, but that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if the car wasn't particularly competitive because it's still a Formula One car. Like,
it's the fact
you're saying it was still faster than most of the cars on the grid this year in terms of lap time. So I don't get where that argument comes from. He wasn't often battling with cars. He was occasionally battling with the Williamses and stuff.
Yeah, but you can't give him like too much discredit because of the experience. Because he had one season by far just driving by himself at the back of the grid in a very unbalanced car, and then combine that with the change
was very unlucky with DNFs.
Yes. Anyway, I was just gonna finish. My second point was that Zhou is 3 and a bit tenths of Valtteri Bottas, who. Let's be honest. Bottas was close with Hamilton in qualifying.
Yeah, on his day, he would be up there with Hamilton.
In 2020, for example, he was less than a tenth off an average of Hamilton over the season. You've got to remember, Bottas is an extremely strong qualifier.
Yeah.
So I think that to be just over 3 tenths off Bottas in your rookie year, I don't think that's that bad. To be honest.
And to be 14 and 8 in qualifying to him too, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's quite impressive.
You said 0.34%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most tracks are going to be more than 3 tenths.
Yeah, most tracks.
Because like if you have like 100 seconds lap, like a 1 minute 40 lap.
Yeah, most tracks that'll be around 3 tenths.
Yeah. I think it'll be a bit more at some tracks, to be honest.
Because we should probably move on.
Yes. Anyway,
yeah.
And finally, I was just going to say, in terms of Zhou's luck, I mean, his first races were 20th, 11th, 11th, 15th, then retire. So he retired when Bottas came. When Bottas was in Imola, when he came 5th, Zhou had an incident with Gasly, retired. Then you had Spain, where Alfa Romeo were really competitive. Zhou retired. Miami, where Alfa Romeo were really competitive. Zhou retired. in those opening races where Joe retired, Bottas came 8th, 5th, 7th, 6th.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
And
of
that is the
points,
majority of Bottas's points scored
He
that season.
he was unlucky, but like I just think the sheer gap between him and Bottas, like almost
Yeah,
9
that's
times
a
the
fair
point,
enough argument. Anyway,
8 times the points.
moving on. I then had, in 18th place, I had Daniel Ricciardo.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I
Okay.
see that.
I think
Yeah.
I
a
had
driver
Kevin
with such...
Magnussen.
Fair enough. Yeah. I've had Kevin
but-
Magnussen one up in 17th. I think
Yep,
for
I have
Daniel
Ricardo one up.
For Daniel Ricciardo, a driver with so much experience, to have, you know, less than half, comfortably less than half. I mean, nearly a quarter
Probably
of
like
your
a
teammate's
fourth.
points.
Yeah.
A teammate who, it's Lando Norris. I rate Lando Norris very highly, but he's not Max Verstappen. You know, it's just...
Okay.
It's embarrassing.
It's just embarrassing. I mean,
It is.
Ricardo had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ricardo had 7 points finishes this year, compared to Norris's 1, 2.
Basically every
There's only
every
twice
race.
as
Norris
many.
is
Basically
17.
every race, yeah.
Norris is 17 points finishes to Ricardo's 7.
I had Tsunoda as 17th.
Really?
Really?
Yes, I really do not rate Tsunoda this season. To be honest, I don't rate him as a driver at all.
He
Interesting.
beat
I had
Gasly on
Tsunoda.
head-to-head quali.
I had Tsunoda in 15th.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
had
Aryan,
I have
you're
Tsunoda in
spot on.
14th.
You're spot on. He did beat Pierre Gasly in qualifying, not in the race or the standings. But crucial thing, he keeps making errors.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
had Canada in the pit lane. He crashed out. There's been so many incidents this year of Yuki just, Singapore crashed into a wall when he was on for a good result. It's just
always
frustrating.
very
He still
random
needs to
and small
develop.
things, but ruining things as well.
But I think there have been worse drivers, to be honest.
There have been worse drivers. I agree, which is why I put Yuki Tsunoda in 15th. I said he's not great,
I
but
had
he's not
17th.
terrible.
I think even last season he was only okay, and then this season he's just been even worse than that. Of course.
I strongly disagree with that. Last season he was extremely poor and didn't get a very much. It kind of went under the radar how poor he was last season. I mean, he only outqualified Gasly one time last season. It was very poor. This year he's made a significant step forward, and I think that's clear to see. But he's just the car's taken a step back. But
Yeah.
But to me, he's just... I can't see much potential in terms of... I can see him developing into a solid driver, but nothing more than that.
I mean, AlphaTauri's
That's fair.
strategies also haven't been brilliant.
No, they haven't. They
Yeah,
haven't.
that's
I
true.
agree with that. He's not been the most lucky driver. But I
Yeah.
don't see it. I don't see that spark in him. That's what I don't see.
He doesn't
had
have that
a-
dog
He
in
didn't
him.
have the Japanese kind of Honda link. I feel he wouldn't be in the seat anymore.
I disagree.
No, I mean,
all the Red Bull
Red Bull-
juniors
Red
are
Bull
worse
don't
than
have any
him.
good juniors, yeah.
Anyway,
There's no one lined up. I had Mick 18th, just like for previous reasons as well.
Yeah,
so
fair.
Discuss Tsunoda. So, I had Magnussen in 17th place.
Yeah, I had
Maybe
Ricardo in
unpopular, but I
17th.
think that's probably very
I had
unpopular.
Ricciardo there
to be
too.
honest.
No,
But
Yeah, I
I
think
had
it's quite
Magnussen, I
harsh.
had Magnussen in 18th, so I'm even worse off than you.
I think
I
it's
just
quite harsh,
think
to be
there's
honest.
been a huge amount of races where A, he's just gone missing, B, he's crashed into somebody and he's just got away with it. He's been slower than Mick on several occasions. He was great at the start of the season, do not get me wrong in that term. But
After that, he's just disappeared.
kind of disappeared.
He's just there.
Like, okay, take Abu Dhabi. Schumacher smacked into Latifi, right? We all saw that
Yeah.
live. And he still finished ahead of Magnussen, even with his penalty.
Insane. Which
Insane.
that
Monza,
Haas car
Magnussen
has dropped
slapped
out
into
a
car
lot.
in turn one, and no one kind of remembered it. I mean, Miami, everyone talks about Schumacher bottling points, whereas Magnussen did exactly the same thing. He
Yeah,
I
with
think crashed
Stroll.
into Ricardo and went. Oh no, it was Stroll. Yeah, Magnussen and
think it was
Stroll
Stroll,
came together. And I think that was Magnussen's fault as well. Again, costing the team points. I just think there's too many races of him just being nowhere. Or being slower than Schumacher, who I don't really rate. So, I think that car could have done a lot more, and I've not been that impressed by him, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's understandable.
No, I absolutely agree. The amount of times in the first lap he's qualified up in 6th place. In Canada, he was up in 6th or 5th, and first lap he crashes into Hamilton.
Yeah, Singapore
Crashes
again.
into Hamilton in Spain too.
Yeah.
He does it in
Yeah.
Singapore. This man, he's allergic to getting a good result because he just is a terrorist, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And
The
it's
amount of
super
times
frustrating.
He's just ruined his race on the first lap so many times, and he's just. I just
Yeah.
feel like he's cost that team a lot of points.
No, yeah, absolutely. They
interested to
should
see
be
how Hulkenberg
comfortably
goes
clear of
against him.
AlphaTauri.
100%.
Comfortably, but
next up.
they are clear, but comfortably.
Next up, Lance Stroll. I've put him in 14th place.
Put him there as well. I put him there as well.
I
him
think.
there as
I
well.
think at
Yeah.
the start of the season he was tragic.
Yes.
It's hard to describe him. First of all, out-qualified by Nico Hulkenberg, who did no testing, just stepped into that car and out-qualified you. That's embarrassing. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Hulkenberg drove that car on vibes and out-qualified Stroll.
Yeah, that was really, really poor. But then, the first shines, Imola was a decent result. But then Miami out-qualified Vettel, got that Aston into Q3. That was the A-spec Aston. Got it into Q3. Drove a really solid race, brought home some points. I was very impressed by that performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
This
you've got...
is just the thing with Stroll is he's horribly inconsistent, but when he's there, he's there.
I agree with that. I mean, there's been a few occasions which I've been very disappointed with. Baku, there was a string where it's like Monaco, he was out in Q1, I think, when Vettel went through to Q3. Embarrassing. Azerbaijan, he crashed out twice in the one qualifying lap. Brought out a red flag.
That was idiotic.
Yeah.
I don't know where he was going. I understood he crashed going into turn 15, I think, if that's the right one. Now, to be fair, that's grand, right? That it's a very tricky corner. We see there crashes there every single season. But then he didn't go into the pit lane. For what reason? I don't know. But then he immediately crashed again. Turn 2 or 3, I think it was. I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah, agreed. But this is the kicker, is that towards the end of the year, he really found some pace. I mean, he started around midway through the season, around like Hungary area. He started consistently either A, out-qualifying Vettel, and B, out-racing Vettel, which I personally found very impressive. I mean, at the end of the day, if you were in the dry qualifying session, Stroll was only 0.136% off Vettel in qualifying, of Sebastian Vettel, 4-time champion.
Yeah, and his qualifying is very weak. Lance's qualifying is very weak.
Exactly.
So that's
and
saying
in the
a lot.
races, he was 0.003% off Vettel. So he basically was exact same pace as Vettel in the races, which surprised me. But it just his drives always go under the radar. He doesn't have those moments of brilliance that Vettel shows, but he's consistently quick in the races. So I was
Stroll, though, I disagree actually. I would say Stroll's biggest Achilles heel is that he is the most inconsistent driver on the grid.
Yeah.
Continuously. He's consistent at being inconsistent.
He is consistent at being inconsistent.
That's a good point.
That's a really good way to say it.
He doesn't have those flashes of wow that Vettel has had in that car.
Yeah.
But
except in USA when he bottled it.
Yeah.
By being an idiot. Yeah.
Dumbass. Anyway, so that's where I put Stroll. I put Pierre Gasly in 13th place. I think he's had a poor year by his standards.
But that car's been
especially
really
after
weak.
last year. The AlphaTauri has been awful, don't get me wrong. But he's just not really impressed me as I was expecting him to. I mean, in Imola, he had the crash with Joe.
And in a lot of qualifying sessions, he's been consistently behind Tsunoda. Like you said, Tsunoda out-qualified him over the season.
In dry qualifying sessions, Tsunoda out-qualified Gasly this year. I mean, Gasly still had a few very strong races, don't get me wrong. And when AlphaTauri are competitive, Gasly tends to be the one leading the way, I've noticed.
Yes.
What we shouldn't forget, though, is that I think this season for Gasly more was he was sick of being at AlphaTauri. He was looking for somewhere else. I feel like he had a lot more going on mentally this year than
that's fair
every
enough,
year,
but I don't take that into consideration.
Me neither.
I understand that.
That's just the performance.
I think.
I have Gasly and Tsunoda in basically the same spot.
But he has had a few stinkers, like in Abu Dhabi, where he was just, you wouldn't have known if he wasn't there that weekend.
Bro just ghosted. Where was he?
Just completely ghosted. There's been a few races this year where he's just kind of disappeared, to be honest. That's
I
what
had
I've said.
Gasly actually the next spot down. I put Joe in that spot and then Gasly one down.
Fair enough.
Joe really high.
Yeah, Joe, I have above Gasly as well.
I have them
I
side
just
by
don't think
side.
it's very fair, to be honest. To
Which
Gasly.
I mean, as much as the points don't show it, I feel like, especially in the second half of the season, he has been consistently with or ahead of Bottas in
Yeah.
a lot of times, and that says a lot, especially knowing what caliber of a driver Bottas is. I think while he is absolutely a paid driver and he's there for the money, I think he has more potential than what people think.
I agree.
I don't think-
I think Zhou in his first season in F1 demonstrated more than Tsunoda did, and I think that's kind of indisputable.
Yes. No, absolutely.
But yeah, but like Joe had 3 years in F2, I think it was. Snow had one.
Yeah, that is also true. That is also
That,
true.
that
He
is
doesn't have
also a
lot of
factor to
experience.
consider. Yeah. Anyway,
I think
In,
Tsunoda was promoted way too early.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Definitely.
so
He had
it-
like
it was
such a quick rise. He couldn't
Consistent
adapt.
years on the trot, F3, F2, F1. Even Piastri didn't get that treatment. Piastri was champion.
yeah.
So
Hmm
I
So-
think they made a bit of an error there.
Yeah. So in 12th, I've put Alex Albon. I think he's had a strong season, but his highs have been so high. I mean, races like Australia was really incredible. In Miami was
Yeah.
brilliant. Belgium was a very, very strong race from him. I think, yeah, it's a shame he missed Monza. I think we would have seen something special from
I
him.
don't
He was
think-
looking quick all weekend. But there is a but. He's had a few races where he's lucky he's not in a better car because otherwise people would talk about them more.
Yeah.
That's a
I
very
think
good
Monaco
point.
is one of them. That was a very poor race from his standards. Austria, when he smacked into Seb, that was just a bit unnecessary. I mean, it was a bit of a racing incident, but he definitely could have left more room. Singapore, I just think, yeah, I think Japan, he moved over a bit on Magnussen as well, which is what caused his gearbox damage as well.
Yeah.
Like I said, don't get me wrong, when he's been strong, he's been really strong and very impressive, which is why he's up in 12th. But he just needs to work on his consistency and his mistakes a little bit, I think, and that'll put him higher. Does anyone disagree?
Personally,
yeah,
I can't.
I have. Okay, wait. You guys go.
Yeah, I
In
can't
12th,
really
I
put
had,
him that high.
I had Kevin Magnussen in 12th.
Wow.
I feel like no, I had him high. Just for the simple fact
Wow.
that he has had a lot of first lap incidents and just stupid moments, let's say. But when he's been on it, he has been on it. Like, now I know it's very flash in the pan if you want to say it, but getting pole in Brazil. Now it was lucky that it was wet, but almost everyone set their first laps, and he was ahead of practically everyone. He, on pure pace, done better than Verstappen over one lap.
Yeah, he's had like flashes of brilliance, but
Yeah, but then
they
what
just
happened in the
haven't been
race?
consistent enough. Yeah, they just
Oh,
haven't
yeah, I
been
know.
consistent enough for him to be that high, in my opinion. But that's just
But
my
I do agree
opinion.
with that. But I think the people below him this season haven't had any flashes of brilliance, I'd say. So that's why I
That's a
feel he
fair
does better.
point. That's a fair point.
Fair enough.
But I had Bottas in that spot just below Albon because while Bottas's first half of the season was incredibly strong, like I was talking about with Zhou, when the car fell off, he kind of fell off as well. Like he just didn't have the pace he had at the beginning of the season. And how much of that is
Yeah.
Zhou improving? How much of that is him not doing as well? You know, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, in 11th place, now this might be controversial. I've
Ooh.
put Sebastian Vettel.
Ooh,
That is a
That
lot
is-
lower than that. I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
a
Wow.
thought,
lot
I
as well.
thought that would be controversial, but there's a few things I'd like you to consider. First of all,
Hello.
number one, Australia crashed out by himself. Come on, man.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up when I
Yeah,
talked about him.
That is a big one.
That
Yeah.
was a
Just
hideous
absolutely
weekend from
been
him.
there for no reason.
And there's just been a few too many races, I would say, where he's just kind of been beaten by Stroll.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't rate Stroll personally, and the fact that Stroll's matched him on race pace is only a tenth and a half behind him in qualifying pace. So Fernando Alonso is going to step in that Aston Martin next year, and
If
I
Alonso
feel
doesn't
pretty
smack up
confident that
Stroll,
Alonso will be comfortably ahead of Lance Stroll, and I think Aryan will probably agree with me on that one.
I had Albon in 11th.
Yeah.
That is fair.
But
I had
I-
Albon in 11th as well, but we already discussed that.
For Vettel, I just think, just over a tenth faster than Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll, by the way, this driver was beaten by a second by Massa. In qualifying over the season, he was beaten by Sirotkin. Sirotkin outqualified him.
Sergei Sorokin.
Then Perez, who's not a strong qualifier, was over a tenth and a half quicker. He was a tenth and a half, and then 3/10 quicker. He's just not been a strong qualifier, and
That's fair.
the Stroll Vettel gap is the smallest gap of any of Stroll's teammates apart from Sirotkin.
I think
Yeah.
with Aston Martin, I know we said we don't talk about it, but one thing I would take into consideration is the politics in that team must be unbelievable.
I agree with
that
that.
is a
I agree with that. But
possibility.
with
That
all
is
the
a
teams and with all the
possibility.
drivers I've been talking about, they were all in a Stroll-owned team.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like,
So
I just wonder, maybe did Sebastian Vettel not just knock it on with Lawrence Stroll, and then stuff could have went on from there? I'm not sure, but I think as well, maybe Stroll, because you have to remember when Stroll was up against Massa, he was 20. And
Yeah,
now
that's a fair point as well.
He is older now, more experienced.
no, I'm not saying Massa would step into an F1 car and beat Vettel by 8.5 tenths.
No.
But
Obviously not.
That's not what I'm saying. But
I am
just
saying that is a significant gap, a very
yeah,
significant
definitely,
gap.
100%.
And historically, rookies have, even though they're rookies, they've quality paces has been their strongest asset, because that's hard to learn with experience. That's more of just your natural feel and your natural pace in the car.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought
yeah.
that'd be unpopular. In number 10, I've put Esteban Ocon.
I
me
have
too.
done the same thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right,
same
okay,
thing.
everyone agrees Ocon 10th. He has been, there's no other way to describe this, perfectly average.
Bro has
in
been
terms
of-
so
In
anonymous.
terms of,
I think-
he's been
I
so
think he's
anonymous,
quite
but that's not a
underrated
bad
at that
thing. He's not had any
He's been
like Class A
underrated.
stinkers I can remember. He's just been consistently average, which is P10. I mean, obviously
Consistently-
average in a field of 20
which
F1
put
drivers.
him ahead of Alonso in standings, which Alonso did have a bunch of mechanical
Exactly,
failures,
but the fact is
obviously,
Ocon
and
was
we'll
there to
get
pick
into
up
that.
places.
But yeah, Ocon was there, and he was consistently there, and I think that's what Alpine needs as a team, as a midfield team, is a driver who will consistently be there to get places, and I think he did a good job this season.
I
I
agree.
would have put him
Ocon
higher if
was
he was
like-
a better teammate. To
Ocon
Alonso.
was consistently Q3, consistently points. Just, he gave Alpine exactly what they needed. Nothing more, nothing less, just what they asked for.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
certainly better drivers that could have driven that Alpine, but at the end of the day, he did a very solid job. Just like I said, solid. That's
Just
how I describe
solid.
it.
That's all it is.
Yes.
Not good, not bad, just solid.
Anyway, well,
It's just
glad glad we all agree on that. In
Yeah.
P9,
I
I've
would have
put.
put.
Oh, sorry. Go.
I could have put Ocon like maybe higher if he was a better teammate.
Yes,
'Cause, like,
that is
yeah,
something to
there
consider.
were-
that
That's
there have been
fair,
a few
that's
occasions
fair.
where
I mean,
you've got to respect your teammate a bit more. And
Hungary start was so
I will bring
outrageous.
this up when it comes to Fernando Alonso because he is not innocent in this. But
Yeah.
Oh, no, not at all.
The Hungary start was so outrageous. Just like he had Hamilton on his left and Alonso on his right. Both of them got like equally good starts. Instead of covering off Hamilton, he squeezes Alonso into the wall, cost them both a position. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
I mean, historically, Ocon has never been a good teammate.
yeah,
Yeah.
Let's
yeah,
be honest
Perez as
here.
well is living proof of that.
yeah.
Like, bro is very aggressive when it comes to teammates. It's kind of funny.
Mhm,
So
yeah.
in P9, I've put Sergio Perez.
Yep.
Okay.
Again, this might be
I
unpopular.
put Sebastian Vettel in P9.
Right. So there's only two places different.
Okay.
So
I'm
for me,
completely different.
Sergio Perez's story of the season, he had a car which basically perfectly suited him at the start of the season. I think has been pretty confirmed by the media by now.
Mhm.
And he still didn't even once in a race beat Verstappen.
Yeah, that's a very fair point.
I mean, over the whole season, over the entire season,
I mean,
season,
it
not
is Max
not
Verstappen,
once was he definitively faster
It
than
is-
Verstappen in a race. Singapore, you could argue, but Verstappen was stuck in traffic. I mean, even Monaco, Perez destroyed his tyres. Verstappen had clearly had a pace advantage on him. You know, they were all bunched up. If you remember in Monaco when it was dried up, because Perez destroyed his tyres.
Here's one.
But
In
no one could get
ninth,
past. Baku,
I
where
put-
Verstappen was 20 seconds faster. It's just
Yeah, that is true.
Perez has
the gap he
11
pulled in
podiums
Spa
this
as well.
season. Verstappen has 15 wins this season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's you're more likely to see a Verstappen win than a
Than a
Perez,
Perez
podium, and I
podium.
think that
Yeah.
says a lot, especially
says
considering the
everything you
car
need to
that they
know.
had in the second half of the season.
I mean, he
I put
finished
Sainz in ninth.
nearly 150 points behind his teammate.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
and it's hard to do
I
that.
think it's a bit harsh because you're comparing him to Max Verstappen. Like, realistically, no one.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone would beat him.
I put
No,
Perez
no,
higher
I'm
just
not.
because
I'm
of
not
his teammate.
asking Perez to beat Verstappen. I'm asking him to, if Verstappen wins the race, to at least get on the podium. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
I
asking.
get that.
He did that. He did that. Like most.
Speaking of
Actually, yeah,
teammates
there was
and
a
big gap,
string of like really bad
Sainz
finishes.
was
Like,
my number 9 because his first half of the season was so dreadful.
So
the first,
I
let's say,
I
maybe-
think that's very fair enough. I've put Carlos Sainz in 7th place. So
I put
Yeah.
him ninth
My-
just because the
my
first
reasoning
half
for
was
that
just-
is, so yeah, you're right. Sainz start of the season was poor, but so second in Bahrain, he would have finished third if not for Verstappen's retirement. Third in Saudi Arabia, that was he was fine in that race. He wasn't particularly slow, wasn't particularly quick. He kept Perez
Yeah.
behind him, so good on him.
Australia was a big stinker.
Australia was a big stinker, but
big stinker.
But the reason he was far down in the grid in the first place wasn't his fault.
yeah,
It
no,
was
I get
initially
that,
the
but
red flag, and then there was an issue with starting up his car, so he couldn't do a warm-up lap. He just had to go straight out and hammer it out.
But he also did bin it in the gravel.
But he also did
first
bin it in
lap.
the gravel, which is entirely his fault.
Yeah, and I think you can have a bad qualifying, and if a bad qualifying translates into a low points paying position, especially in kind of Australia, that's understandable.
Yeah.
But if
But
you just bin it in the gravel first lap, it's just
No, I agree. So the first 2 races he's been fine. Third race was a stinker. Imola, he started 4th. And
It wasn't really his fault.
yeah, and it wasn't his fault at all. He
That
got
wasn't
hit by
his fault
Ricardo.
at
Ricardo
all.
admitted fault. That wasn't his fault.
I mean, he got a bad start though. Like,
Yeah, but
But
still
yeah.
not his fault. Leclerc got overtaken by
At the
Norris.
slightest.
Yeah.
Bad
It
start
was
doesn't mean
unfortunate.
you deserve to get taken out of the race. Like, he lost 1 position.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I don't
agree, I
think
agree.
I don't think that's fair. Miami was a fine race. He came 3rd. He beat Checo Perez.
Mhm.
Spain was a stinker. I mean, he still finished 4th, but it was a stinker.
he was full.
Yeah.
I mean, that corner they had a win. Like, if Max spins out the same corner, I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
remember.
Yeah,
Leclerc
exactly.
was
Verstappen made the same
comfortably-
mistake, who is a 2-time world champion, so I think that's kind of understandable. It was a stinker, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he was the only one to make the
Yeah,
mistake.
yeah.
And it was at a similar time as well, so there was clearly some kind of wind.
Yeah, and I have
anyway.
Perez in
And,
this
and,
spot.
and, and then you
So
had Monaco,
complicated.
where he was 2nd, which was a strong race from him. Baku, where he retired, that's not his fault. Canada, he came 2nd, he was
Ferrari
challenging
tax
Verstappen
in
for the
Monaco,
win.
though.
That was an alright race. Silverstone, he
I
won
still-
after getting pole.
Yeah.
Austria, he retired, and he probably would have finished 2nd. So,
Yeah.
the start of the year wasn't actually as bad as you think it was, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
He only had the
Absolutely.
one
So,
stinker.
like-
He only had the one real stinker. He had maybe 2 if you count Spain.
Yeah.
Which, so, in my opinion, I think... the thing is, right, he statistically is closer to Leclerc than Perez is to Verstappen.
Yeah,
That
true.
is
So,
very
for
true,
me,
yeah.
and, like, it's by a decent margin as well. So, for me, that is enough cause to say that... he has been better than Sergio Perez in terms of the battle of the number 2 drivers.
Yeah, I have Sainz right above Perez in my rankings. I have them 8th and 7th.
I've got
Mhm.
Sainz 7th, Perez 9th. So for context, Perez was, depending on if you count wet sessions or dry sessions, about 3/10 off Verstappen
Yeah.
Yeah,
in qualifying trim. Carlos Sainz in qualifying trim was, drumroll, 0.142 seconds off Leclerc.
And we're talking about
So-
Leclerc, who's comfortably
Who's
one
very
of the best
quick over
qualifiers
1 lap.
on the grid.
Even Aryan can't
So-
disagree that over 1 lap, Leclerc's close to Verstappen.
Yeah.
I'd say better.
so
I honestly
that's-
think
that's a
Max's
10th and a
biggest
half
issue is
difference.
qualifying.
For Sainz. So for me,
Yeah,
that
no,
puts
I
it.
agree with that.
I then put Bottas in 8th place,
That
which is
very
high.
for
That's very
Bottas.
high.
Yeah.
That's very
But
high.
at the start of the season, getting into a new team, okay.
That's
First of all,
very high.
Bahrain, both Alfa Romeos had a clutch issue. Bottas still managed to cut his way through the entire field because he went back to nearly last and finished 6th. So that was impressive to me. Saudi, he was fighting with the Alpines, which looked like a quicker car than the Alfa Romeo at that point, before he retired. Australia, another strong result. Imola was really, really strong result. He came 5th. Miami, he was fighting the Mercedes cars. Spain, again, Verstappen had to overtake Bottas to win the race. Such was his pace. I just think that the start of the season was so strong. And yes, the middle towards the end of the season, he was very kind of nowhere.
Yeah, he wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
There were some races,
but I
there
think
were some races where if he just didn't go, it wouldn't have made a difference.
No, I agree with that. But I think he capitalised when the car performance mattered, which is what I hold against Schumacher. Bottas capitalised when the car performance was good, and then kind of, took his foot off the gas when the car performance wasn't so strong.
Yeah.
Joe was like, I don't think it was that bad for Joe to like start matching him and beating him in like Monza, for example.
Yeah. But like I said, the Alpha basically scored no points over that whole period anyway. So it's not like he was costing the team any points. He just wasn't as competitive as he could be. But like I said, for me, the start of the season was absolutely spectacular. So that earns him an 8th place. Maybe I'd put him down to 10th, but I think he deserves a spot in the top 10. In my opinion, in that car, he deserves a spot in the top 10.
I had Russell in 8th.
Wow.
Ooh,
Russell,
really?
that's very
Okay,
hard.
so-
No. Please explain your reasoning, because that's super controversial.
Yeah.
Very controversial.
Wow.
I think, honestly, that W13 was much better than what the two of them got out of it.
So where do you have
Ooh,
Hamilton?
okay.
I think
Really?
before the new floor regulations, I understand shit, right? Absolute can't. It was very. The porpoising was too much to focus on down a straight. But then new floor regulations came in. Mercedes were on the back foot. Then when they came back, that car was better than one race win. And I seriously feel put Norris in it instead of Russell, and he does what he does in Brazil, but he gets an extra race win as well.
So that's interesting.
I can get behind the Norris comment, because I feel like Norris was very strong this season, but still having Russell in, where'd you put him, 8th?
8th, yeah.
Yeah, I feel
So
like
where do
that
you
is
have
very
Hamilton?
low.
I know, yeah, it is very low, but I wasn't.
If you have Russell in 8th,
So this is the thing. I agree that the W13 was better than one race win. I fundamentally agree with that. But, and there's a massive but, I don't think the drivers really did anything wrong. I think with Hamilton,
The team did do some very weird things.
The team messed up on several occasions. So first of all, in Silverstone, Hamilton maybe could have won the race if he hadn't have lost the position to Norris off the start, because he lost about 2-3 seconds behind him, and he would have been ahead of the Ferrari. Well, at least one of the Ferraris when the safety car came out. But that would be an overperformance by Hamilton if he had won that race, because the car wasn't the fastest car on the day. It would have been an overperformance if he did win that race, in my opinion. And then you have races like Hungary where Hamilton had the DRS issue. It's like that's not his fault. He had the pace to win that race.
Zandvoort, big one.
Zandvoort, where Mercedes shouldn't have allowed Russell to pit. That was stupid.
See, that's the thing. And I think what we have to take into account as well with Russell being so low down is that man loves hitting people. Or been
That's
I agree. I agree with that. But
yeah,
Singapore,
I don't think it matters
Singapore
that
was
much.
horrible for Russell. Horrible
it's
race.
hideous.
Japan wasn't great. USA he hit Sainz.
for no reason as well.
France
He literally just didn't break
he had a
it.
bit of a clumsy collision with Perez. Austria, he had a clumsy collision with Perez. He had a few collisions, but I mean, Charles Leclerc is rated as a
think
top
we've
3 driver
mattered
in
much.
2020, and he
What we've said
executed
consistently
about 8
there
people.
is-
Yeah.
They've all just been clumsy. It's
Yeah,
just, I
don't
I
think it
agree,
matters
but
that much.
it's his first season in a top car. I think, this is why I put Russell 5th, is because of the collisions.
5th? You put him 5th?
I put Russell 5th.
I put him
because
6th.
because of the collisions. But but you can't deny the fact he's been matching Hamilton in qualifying. You know, he's finished
very
ahead of him in the
difficult thing to
standings.
do, yeah.
Yeah, Adam Fifth as well. I mean, his start of season was so strong. Like,
I agree. No, I agree. I mean, he was called Mr. Consistent because everyone was praising getting top 5, which
Oh,
didn't quite make sense
I mean,
to me
he didn't
because
really-
the Mercedes should have been top 5. So
Yeah.
it's the clear third fastest car.
yeah.
But nevertheless, he wasn't making any mistakes at start. He was very consistent. And like I
never
said,
really
I think that
dropped form
he's
until
a
about Singapore.
deserved 5th in my list, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
understandable.
think I put him above Hamilton.
That's fair enough.
put
I
Russell
put
above
Hamilton
Hamilton?
just above Russell because Russell didn't have those moments of brilliance that Hamilton did. The fact that
Yeah.
Russell
put him
won
one
Brazil,
below.
but until then, Hamilton was the only one ever challenging for race wins in that car. It
I
would
know
always
what
be
you
Hamilton
did.
challenging for the win rather than Russell.
I
I put
absolutely
Hamilton a
agree with
good
you.
bit ahead of Russell, just for the simple fact that I even forgot about this. Hamilton was doing a lot of freaky setups during the early part of the season to try see where the car would sit
Like,
happy.
how long can you?
That's true, but how much can you use that to justify him being behind Russell in the standings?
I think
That's
it
my
cost him a
problem.
lot.
Like he
Genuinely.
says, yes, he was trying different setups, but
Yeah.
it's
I don't buy it,
it's
to be
just
honest.
After the summer break, he only outscored him by what, like 6 points, I think. So
yeah.
you know,
No, it's just that. Clearly he was trying setups, but it's how much can you attribute to that? I don't think you can write off entire race weekends
Yeah.
like Imola as the setup was bad. Like he should have been able to clear an AlphaTauri.
I mean,
Even
have you
if he
seen
was
that
running
clip
a bad
of
setup.
Imola
like
where he was?
I don't think he should have been out in Q1 in
Yes.
Jeddah
In Jeddah, yeah, there's no way he should have
because
been
of
out
the
in Q1.
setup. No way. Yeah.
He was defending like Bottas and Imola as well. You've seen the onboards.
Yes, no, I mean, I think there's been a few occasions this year where... But anyway, I think Hamilton, for me, is 4th. I think, because like I said, he had those moments of brilliance where he could win a race, where Hungary, for example, where it was so obvious that him and Verstappen were still the 2 best drivers on the grid.
Yeah, that's all ahead.
Wait,
on the
who do you have
list.
sixth?
Adam
Level
6th.
In
That's good.
sixth,
Sixth.
I have
Did we skip
Fernando
seven, or-
Alonso Diaz.
Wow.
Right.
Six.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Six.
That's
So-
lower than I have him.
So
That's lower than I have him as well.
again, I know that's probably unpopular, but I think there's been a few
Six.
occasions which you have to consider, which I think with Alonso, he has this supreme power to no matter what happens, it's never his fault.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
definitely.
very
He's been
true.
extremely unlucky this year, but I think let me say a few
Miami
things.
is a big example.
Australia, really unlucky, right? Gearbox failure, right? In the race, he starts P10, right? He starts P10 in a very competitive Alpine, an Alpine that was challenging for potentially a front row in qualifying. You agree? So
Yeah, and
from
then after
P10,
that, what
he
was
should
going
score
on?
points. What he shouldn't do from P10 is finish last.
Yeah,
Because
what
Norris
was
was
going
talking on the
there?
post-race show. The reason he finished last is because he destroyed his tyres. He couldn't manage the tyres well enough in that race. He pushed too hard, and he had to make an extra pit stop, which dropped him back down the field. Right? That's a
Yeah,
race where people
yeah.
focus on the qualifying. They don't focus on the race where he made mistakes because of the initial qualifying. I think that's an example of where he's maybe not been quite... And Miami's another great example, right? Again, he started in a strong place. He, first of all, had a small collision with Hamilton. Then he smacked into Gasly. And then he cut the chicane, straight-lined it, floored the throttle, and got a penalty for it.
Yeah,
which
no,
knocked him
Miami
outside the
was a
points.
stinker from him.
Again, it's another race where it just seemed to go completely unnoticed.
But you know,
It's just
almost every
two
race where
races,
he DNF'd, he was in a strong position.
Yeah,
And that's like the
that's-
biggest
Yeah.
thing. And I feel like
Saudi
that
Arabia.
elevates him in rankings for a lot of people too, because, well, the unlucky narrative. But at the same time,
Yeah.
you do have to look at those races where
for sure
he really
was
wasn't unlucky, and it was
For sure.
no, it was all his fault in a lot
But
of
even
the
his
races.
points
sometimes.
finishes, he got really unlucky. Like Austria, I think he had to make 4 pit stops.
Yeah,
So
Austria
on the
was
sprint, they
ridiculous.
left him on the stand. I don't understand how he finished in the points. That's one of the drives of the season for me.
No, I agree. He's had some very impressive drives. I'm not trying to deny that. I think there's been a few races like qualifying sessions as well, where he's not really extracting maximum of the car. Abu Dhabi, for example, 11th. That Alpine was definitely a Q3 car.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly underperformed there. There's been a few
No,
races
it's
where Ocon
He's
just
retiring
seems
off that race.
to keep out qualifying him. take for example Japan. Ocon was 5th, Alonso was 7th.
Yeah.
And there were a few races mid-season where Ocon just seemed to be consistently out-qualifying Alonso.
I mean, I feel like that says more about how decent Ocon was this season than how.
I
poor
disagree
Alonso
because
But like
when
most
it came
races
to the,
in the middle of the season, though, Alonso beat him.
what'd you say? Well, the race
In most of the races,
Alonso beat him.
overall, I think Alonso beat. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that, but for me that doesn't change the fact that he could have maybe, yes, he beat Ocon, but he could have finished slightly higher up. I think there are a few races where the Alpine was stronger than the McLaren, and Alonso was
No,
especially in
was
qualifying,
consistently stronger than
Like
the
where, for
McLaren.
example?
especially in
Consistently
qualifying,
stronger.
that the Alpine was stronger than the McLaren, and that Alonso wouldn't be maximized, wouldn't be getting the maximum result, which.
But Alonso's always been stronger in races. Like that's
No,
the way
I
see
agree
it.
with that, but even in some races, I think there's definitely an argument that the
the Alpine was consistently ahead of the McLaren throughout the season. I will
I
fully
agree.
admit that easily. Yeah. But, yeah, there's definitely some points where he didn't get the full
But
potential.
so many like
And that's
DNFs.
why I have him 4th and not like 2nd or 3rd. I have him 4th.
Yeah, but I still have him in the top
because I'm a
6.
fan.
But I just think there's been a few occasions where he's just, and Brazil, for example, the sprint, he smacked into his teammate. You can't take your teammate
Yeah, that
out.
was
he just smacked his front wing off on the back of his teammate,
No, but
taking his
I mean,
teammate out
it's
and
because he
him.
was already frustrated because Ocon's pushed him out.
No,
onto the
I
curb.
don't
Yeah,
care
see,
if you're
I got
frustrated.
frustrated.
You can't just take your teammate out.
Frustration shouldn't matter in
Yeah.
context. You're
I
a
don't
racing
think he's
driver. You're gonna
frustrated.
get frustrated.
Yeah, but
If you look at that curve
Ocon-
going into
Ocon's
turn
already
4 in
pushed him
Brazil,
off the track.
it does slant down a little bit on the outside, which is where
I don't.
Alonso's
If you watch
two-
that replay, Ocon didn't really do anything wrong.
No, Ocon pushed him out though.
No,
It's
but he
his
didn't
teammate,
because
he just pushed him.
Ocon was fully ahead. He was attacking the McLaren.
I think we should move on to the next person on the list.
But he was attacking the McLaren and he simply just
I
ran
had
wide. He
Perez
wasn't trying to
P6.
push Alonso off. But regardless, he's
But I
still
mean,
had
he
a very
did,
strong
like-
season, Fernando. He's had a very strong season.
So,
And
what place are we at? 5th?
He finished 5th in
yes,
the race.
we've done Alonso. We've talked about Hamilton and Russell.
I had Hamilton P5.
Yeah, I had Hamilton P4, Russell P5.
I had Hamilton P5 and Russell P6.
Yeah,
I
so
had him
we've all got pretty
P6.
similar.
I had Hamilton P6 and Russell P5.
I
Right,
think
okay.
Hamilton, I've said it again, Hamilton did sacrifice a lot with the setups. I know you're like, oh,
Yeah, but how much of that is setups, you
But-
know?
I do think
Yeah,
it was a lot.
you can,
Because if you think
you
about
just
it,
have a stinker
and I also think you have to remember
and
as
then just
well,
like say it was
should be the older drivers some more slack, considering they've been driving these hybrids now for the past, since the regulations came out.
Yeah, what I want you to bear in mind is take for example the in the Imola GP, Russell and Hamilton looked like they were running similar setups. Both in qualifying, they were both out in Q2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Russell worked his way through the pack to finish 4th in Imola.
And
Whereas
Hamilton
Hamilton
was
finished
in like
13th.
12th.
Russell
right?
overtook
13th,
several
yeah.
cars, and Hamilton just couldn't.
Yeah,
I think
Hamilton's
Hamilton on board,
racecraft
like,
isn't
really-
as good as people make it out to be, especially looking at instances such as, especially Belgium. What was he doing?
no, here's
You know,
His
That
race
was a
craft is
very
not
off
great.
moment. I will say that was very, very poor from him.
But anyway,
but yeah,
that's-
I still think overall in the season he was clear of Russell, but still,
It
I
was
think
close.
I
It
feel
was
like
close
I have
between the
season
two
is
marks.
very accurate.
yeah.
Anyway, in P2, sorry, in P3.
P2.
In P3, sorry, in
Where are you
P3.
going?
In P3,
I'm not fourth.
I have in P3 I have put Lando Norris.
I
Yeah,
put
fair.
Leclerc in P3.
I just think that
I put Alonso because I'm biased. but
yeah, but that's fair enough.
To be honest, I think Norris might have been better.
I think
I think
for
they were
Norris,
about equal.
For Norris
think
scoring
Norris is better than
122 points to his teammates 37, that's really impressive. And I just think finishing best of the rest by the
It's
margin he
Ricardo,
did.
though.
Alonso had no, but okay, so ignore Ricardo. To finish best of the rest of the margin he did, 122 points over Ocon and 92. Alonso had loads of horrible luck, but
Yeah,
Ocon
absolutely.
didn't have that much bad luck. And
And
even,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
even
think-
then,
Clear of
Norris
Ocon.
was nearly 30 points clear in
Not like
a worse
I
car.
don't know.
In a slower car,
I think
in
he
a slower
finished
car than the Alpine. Yep.
Yes, in a slower car than the Alpine.
That says a lot.
So many times in qualifying, Norris would be best of the rest when the Alpine was a quicker car that weekend.
Yeah.
He would just pull a lap out the bag. So often that would happen. You know, he had the brilliant podium in Imola, but he still had great comeback charges through the field, like in Kota, where he had to overtake half the field and finish best of the rest. I just think he's...
I put Norris P2 because I genuinely think he was...
I have Norris
Yeah,
P2
but-
as well.
At Kota,
like
for
he was
example, like
better than
Alonso was
Leclerc.
definitely a
Norris
better
in that
driver
Red
than
Bull,
Lizette.
that RB18 alongside Verstappen, there is a in-team title fight. Seriously.
I don't
that's how it
think
was.
that's true, but
I know,
I think that it would be
I
much
think Alonso
closer
would be...
than Perez.
This year,
I think Alonso
Verstappen.
maybe would beat Verstappen in qualifying, but in the race Verstappen would shit on him, to be honest. But that's my opinion. I think he's had a
Verstappen
very
beats
strong
any
season.
driver, I think, at least 15.
What'd you say?
I think Verstappen comfortably beats any driver, no matter who you put him
Yes,
up
but not in
against teammates.
qualifying,
Yeah.
I would argue.
Leclerc would be ahead of him in qualifying, but I have Leclerc P3.
So
Which-
so I've Norris P3. We've talked about him. I think it's an
I mean,
absolutely
yeah, but the way I
fantastic
see it,
season.
like, qualifying really doesn't matter.
I've put... It does matter. It does matter. I've put... In second place, I put Charles Leclerc. So, this is a toss-up because Leclerc had the Imola bozo moment and the France massive bozo moment from the lead of the
Jesus,
race.
France was just... I think that's why I put Alonso and Norris over Leclerc, because look at their seasons versus Leclerc's. They never had a moment like that. Like, Leclerc...
Yeah.
Yeah, they've
on his
never
own
had
for
such
no reason
bad...
other than just skill issue.
Yeah, no, I have Alonso,
Mistakes.
Leclerc, Norris, Verstappen, and the reason why I have Leclerc splitting Norris and Alonso is because Alonso has had a decent amount of minor incidents, so I feel like he should be behind Leclerc, but Norris really hasn't had anything other than Brazil. Really.
Yeah, Brazil
like,
was
at all.
Norris's only bozo moment, and that was lap one.
And
car going around
Leclerc
the outside.
has had massive moments like Imola and France, and I can't look at that and say that Leclerc had a better season than Norris. I feel like if Norris was in the Ferrari with Leclerc, I feel like
Brazil
he
was a bit
would
of
challenge him.
What'd you say?
I feel like if Norris was
me?
in the Ferrari,
Yeah.
he'd challenge him.
I think that's
What
fair
happened
to
in
say.
Brazil?
Challenge
Jog
Leclerc.
my memory.
Norris took the Ferrari.
Norris kind of drove into Leclerc. Yeah.
But like I said,
But
I
that
think,
was
I
only
think
that
Oh,
minute.
while it
yeah,
was Norris's
yeah,
fault,
yeah.
it was lap one and Leclerc was going around the outside of a very high-speed corner.
I mean, he wasn't
Yeah.
that good anyway, so, like,
Yeah,
he's been very consistent.
yeah, exactly. Like
think-
it was Norris's fault, but it wasn't egregious in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
it was
I
very
think-
very
I think
easy
it was
mistake to make.
pure-
I mean,
Yeah,
he
just a
sent
very
him
easy
into the barrier, so
mistake.
I think it was pretty egregious.
Yeah,
like-
yes,
But if you
but I'm
look at it
saying
as well-
that
It didn't matter.
yeah.
Where Leclerc was, I would argue that he almost didn't give Norris enough space because Norris was getting pushed onto the curb.
Oh, I
No,
don't know.
Leclerc was
about
all the way
that.
to
Into the corner,
No.
into the
All the way to
corner,
the end.
into the corner. Leclerc squeezed Norris right to the inside, and as a result of
allowed
that,
to do
Norris
that.
understeered. It was Norris's fault because that's still your responsibility to not understeer into them.
Be fair.
But if Leclerc
Yeah.
had not squeezed him, they probably would have both got through that corner. So
I don't
Because
know
you have
about
to remember
that.
as well, bias will always bias. So that's
Yeah.
Leclerc's
no,
fault.
I still
Yeah,
think, I
that's
still
true.
stand by it was Norris's fault and the penalty was deserved.
Yeah.
but
It's
I'm,
like,
I'm saying
people
there
say-
are mitigating
People
circumstances.
say, like, I think it's like a big trope though, but like understeering. Like, you remember when Verstappen squeezed Hamilton to the inside wall,
Mhm.
and people blame that.
Well, no,
on
because
the
the thing
Silverstone
is,
crash, it
Verstappen
just
didn't
doesn't make
squeeze
sense.
Hamilton to the inside wall there. Verstappen
But even
defended
if-
the
even
inside,
if-
and then Hamilton decided to go even further inside,
Yeah.
which is the
Even
difference,
if you
in
defend
my
the
opinion.
inside, like that shouldn't count for anything. No matter how much they squeeze you, you should make the corner.
No, I
Regardless.
agree, which is why I say it's Norris's fault. I'm just saying there are mitigating
Yeah, yeah.
circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I
then
understand that. I
number
think
one, Max
there's a lot
Verstappen.
more to it than just.
That's not really a
Yeah,
debate.
completely.
I don't think there can be any debate. I feel like if somebody doesn't put Verstappen as number one in their season, they are incredibly
they're just
biased,
lying.
and they need to
Yeah.
reassess what they're saying because there's no way he's not. He's just had basically the perfect season, bar a couple of incidents, especially looking at Singapore. But yeah, other than that, he's been basically
I mean,
perfect.
Singapore was Wally. The lockup a circumstance of unluckiness.
Yeah, but just
Yeah,
because it
but
was
that's
caused
the
by
same
an unlucky
argument I had
quality
with
doesn't
Sainz
mean
earlier in the
that.
season with Australia.
Yeah, it just doesn't mean that You know,
Like, the way I
you
see
have
it-
to
the way
look
I
at that,
see
and
it
if he
is
was
that
ahead, would he maybe have done that? Maybe, you don't know.
if
It's just he didn't have a good race.
if Max
Just
doesn't
one
DNF in
lockup.
Bahrain and Australia,
One lockup in a whole 22 race season.
Yeah, that's it. That's
singular
basically
lockup.
it.
On a
That's
wet track.
basically
That's it.
the only
On
thing
a
he
wet
did
track
wrong.
with
if
On a
Max
dry line,
didn't DNF in
Sweet.
Bahrain and Australia, with luck, there was a chance he would have won the title in Monza. So, you know,
Possibly, yeah, which is insane.
which is unbelievably incredible, which is better than anything Hamilton or even to a certain extent Vettel was ever able to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is in a car that wasn't comfortably the
No,
fastest
in the first
car
half of
until
the
the summer
season,
break.
the statistics say that the Ferrari was quicker.
Yeah,
This
Ferrari
is-
was
this
quicker.
is me
It wasn't
saying this,
the
and there are
fastest
in the
several-
second fastest car.
Yeah, it was the second fastest car until the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's
Which is
incredible to
crazy.
me. It's
Yeah.
incredible
Yeah.
to me.
His form.
I mean,
of-
Hungary,
so,
where did he win it from? He won it from how far
10th.
down again?
10th.
10th. Unreal.
10th. Insane.
So his
In
run of
Belgium, he
form
won
between
from
Imola,
14th.
he won Imola, he won Miami. Both were very closely contested by Ferrari. Spain, obviously Ferrari was quicker, but that was a failure.
Yeah.
Monaco, the Perez incident.
Which we found out he definitely did crash on purpose,
Yeah.
by the way.
No, absolutely.
Then you had
yeah.
Baku where the Ferrari was very close to the Red Bull, I would say. Canada,
He
again,
pulled
Canada,
such
I
a
would
gap.
argue the Ferrari was quicker than the Red Bull, and he still won that.
It was quicker. Yeah,
It
because
was,
you had
I agree.
science like on him the whole end of the race. And it's Verstappen's definitely faster than science.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
with that, we have ranked all the drivers from first to last. And yeah, I think it's been a very interesting season. I'm looking forward to next
We
season.
got some hot takes.
Absolutely. Next season
We
will
have to
be
say-
Next, if we
Have
do another
fun.
episode like this, I'm sure we can have some hot takes going on.
yes.
And yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.